Another day of Bitcoin teeter-tottering along the $29,000 region. However, there are a few more setups now emerging that corroborate the overall story that the next few days, well, maybe the next 4 to 5 days, perhaps, let's say, might be a bit tumultuous. Anyways, other than that whole nonsense, I want to welcome you back to the Krown Crypto channel. It's a nice little Saturday morning over here from Helsinki, Finland, and it's time to get right on into these dirty old charts. So, starting off with CME right here on the 12-hour time frame, I just wanted to point out that there is yet another drive of hidden bearish divergence come off that last high that we did see from yesterday's price action, and CME actually officially closed in the week at 29,045, which is going to have implications on some of our other indicators that we were looking at. Of course, this is coming in within the context of volatility increasing off of extreme lows. So momentum down, or in this case, a negative momentum signal, plus volatility up, and even the 12-hour jewel light might even get another downside signal right here as well, supported by, of course, the DMI and even having a silver cross to the downside all along the same way. Now, of course, these things do suggest that there's a higher probability of a downside breakdown than not, but as long as Bitcoin is still above basically last week's low, which was the 1st of August, which was 28,625 on CME specifically, it's still kind of difficult to be looking for that move to really occur to anything new and significant, really. By the same token, could still be saying the same thing as yesterday in the sense that, hey, if Bitcoin does trade above last week's wick high, which was 30,245 on CME, I would be looking for a nice run up somewhere around 31,000 bucks, perhaps. At least 30,600, and things would start to look nice and hunky-dory for the Bitcoin bullahs yet again. But for right now, pressure's onto the downside, and the ball's in the bear's court, at least for this next half week, maybe even a full week, actually, depending upon how Monday opens up. Anyways, moving on now, I wanted to get into the 12-hour HPDR setups over here. Essentially, the same things what we looked at before, but I think just a good reminder of the areas of interest to the downside upon continuation to the downside. That would still be low $28,000 territory, perhaps even a wick down all the way to the daily range lows at 27,600. Somewhere within that range would likely be fair game, at least for an attempt for a bit of a bounce. By the same token, to the upside, if we were to see a 12-hour closure above the average of the range, which is 29,550, I would be looking at that as a good indication that Bitcoin is likely going to reclaim that wick high from last week or this past week, and very likely work its way back up at least to the mid 30s, maybe even all the way up to 31, and that would actually start to look pretty damn good for confirming this is reaccumulation. But until then, downside is the heavier buy, so at least in the way they look at things. I believe that also the HPDRO, which is essentially a directionality based volatility indicator, which is kind of a mouthful, but that one's also kind of suggesting down right here as well. Although, again, I mean, these reads are not anything super consequential just because we haven't seen anything. We haven't seen volatility expansion, really. It's essentially been low for a very, 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 very long time now. I mean, even in these extreme lows for basically 2 weeks on this, on this particular time frame, which you already fucking know that. Or sorry, not 2 weeks, but a full month and a couple weeks. So 6 weeks, six weeks going on 7 now. Anyways, I want to bring you over here to stochastic momentum now. We'll actually start off with CME, and I just want to go over the higher term timeframes yet again. Follow up on yesterday's analysis. In this case, a couple of very important things. One, the weekly stochastic momentum will continue to move to the downside as the pivot was not met. Obviously, Bitcoin closing well below 31,200, so this one continues to twist down alongside the 5-day time frame as well here. Same pivot essentially. Moving on to the 2-day time frame, also nose diving below 30,800, and daily would be actually up but weak and will turn back down below 29,000 bucks. So as Bitcoin teeters along 29,000 bucks, if this starts to turn down yet again in the bearish control zone, another damn good indication that Bitcoin will play out a downside extensive move before anything else, at least down to low $28,000 territory. I do believe that there is a bit of hoping at that region. However, if that one fails, looking much lower, much lower. Anyways, moving on the 12-hour time frame, also coming down, maybe even front running that daily below 29,550. 6-hour time frame is going to also be down below 29,450. 4-hour time frame is also going to be down below 29,120, and hourly is going to be also down below 29,400 or so. So we're starting to see all time frames essentially align with each other. And well, that would suggest that once CME opens back up late Sunday, early Monday, that would be a damn good time for this move to start to be occurring. So I would still kind of be, on the same side of that. is there going to be some short-term time frame bounces in between? Sure, of course. That's what the weekend's for, my friends. But it does look like, at least for these next, this, I would even say this next week, pressure is going to be favoring the downside, I would say. Also going back on to the 2-day time frame setup over here, it still hasn't gone away. It's still very much valid and viable, but it would lead me to believe, however, as we'll go over in a second, that the downside probably isn't as bad as what I think a lot of people are looking for. I think a lot of people are looking for like a tremendously nasty downside move back down to like, macro range lows. Fair enough, could happen, I guess, but it's certainly not my first target, nor even my second or third. But in this case, I'll just go over the setup very, very quickly. So we did see that 2-day time frame volatility represented by this indicator over here is expanding from extreme lows. That combined with the direction of the stochastic oscillator, which has been to the downside the whole way and continues to the downside below $29,000 closing tomorrow night. So that means that this one theoretically kind of has to move within the next 2 to 4 day spread minimum below $29,000 on a closing basis. Is still going to be favoring the downside, of course. To put numbers on it, if we were to look at the probability of the direction of the stochastic oscillator in conjunction with volatility expansion, it's been right about 81.5% of the time, and the average move on this one has actually been, in the mid-20s. Now, there have been some, much less moves, like in the mid-teens. There's been some much greater moves in like the mid-30s, but ultimately, somewhere around there would kind of be fair game. But here's the thing: as you can see, the 2-day time frame stochastic oscillator for spot price action is all the way down here in extreme lows already, and price action is actually pretty close to that pivot. I mean, it's technically above right now, to be fair, by $50, but not very convincing. But this would imply that, if we do see a downside move, it probably isn't going to be like a death move. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it might be a trap move, more accurately said. Maybe, like I said, somewhere down to like 28, maybe even like down to 27.5, 27.6, and then bounce from there. If that does fail, however, and this one completely falls apart, whereas the next major areas to be looking at from a statistical perspective, basically like 26,900, 26,600-ish regions, somewhere around there would be the next area of interest. And then below there, below there, probably back down just below $25,000. So other than that, I don't have too much to add. Maybe we could go quickly look at traditional markets with NASDAQ over here. Again, we were saying, hey, coming into this week, this is a damn good place for a pullback to emerge from. Again, pullback, not the same thing as like macro reversal or anything like that. I don't think this one's going back down to like the lows. I just think it's going to come down and very likely set in a higher low. And that could be somewhere around $15,000. That could be maybe as low as 14,400. Maybe these LARP lines play out in that fashion. Who the fuck knows? But we do see, again, bearish divergence on weekly RSI, and we see the weekly jewel also twisting down at the same region. And again, just hit a long-term, dare I say, macro region from the breakdown that we saw starting in January of 2022. A very nice and logical pullback area. Going to take some time, obviously, but in this case, I would be saying that, very likely does trade down at least to 15,200. I think we'll probably even see just below $15,000, and that's perhaps the first area where we could see a higher low, maybe even like I said, as far down as 14,400, somewhere around that yellow 21, which we do see a small gap right there, but not really anything super consequential. Was this a bearish engulfing? Let me just zero in on it. I don't think it was. High over here, 15,904. High over here, 15,917. It was a bearish engulfing, so it did close as a bearish engulfing. Yeah, damn good place for a reversal to happen. Again, reversal into very likely a higher low. I'm not calling like a macro reversal here. It's going to come back down to the lows and continue on lower, and everyone's fucked and blah, 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 blah. Very likely sets in a higher low. Tentatively speaking, I'd say somewhere between 14.5 to like 15. Anyways, I think that's a good place for me to be leaving off today. Just a nice positive message that Bitcoin's fucked. Just kidding. Depends on your definition of fucked. As always, there does need to be some hope on the other side. It's like, where do things change around? Again, either back above this past week's high, wick high, that is, or a 12-hour closure above 29,550 are the two major areas of interest, at least one way that I look at things for keeping the hopium alive for Bitcoin boolas here. Anyways, yeah, that's going to do it for me now. Just under 10 minutes. Beautiful timing. I'm going to sign off on that note. Take care, much love, and see you hopefully Sunday.